Thank you all for joining the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions Employer Webinar Series. Today we were talking about apprenticeship, and I will just let you know that we were going to be answering your questions. So please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen to type out questions that you might have. We will be reading those questions from the Q&A. So if you can put those down there, we appreciate it. This is being recorded and will be available on the NMDWS YouTube channel. And you can find it there to go back and refer to at any point. And without further ado, I will turn things over to our State Apprenticeship Director, Katrina Vigil.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your interest in learning a little bit more about registered apprenticeship. I'm excited to share this information with you. As Stacy mentioned, I'm Katrina Vigil, the State Apprenticeship Director with the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. Let's see, here is a brief glimpse of kind of what I will be discussing today. So what is registered apprenticeship? So registered apprenticeship is a proven workforce solution. Our programs are industry-driven, high-quality career pathways where employers can develop and prepare their future workforce. There is lots of flexibility in the development of registered apprenticeship programs. This is a really hot word right now at the federal level, at the various state levels. There's a lot of federal investments in apprenticeship at this time, and apprenticeship is just really growing. So just a little bit more about it. Key components of apprenticeship. Number one is paid employment. So with an apprenticeship program, there has to be paid employment. Typically from day one, the apprentice starts on the actual job site with that employer at the work setting, and they're being paid. Salaries have to be at least minimum wage, but usually it's based on what a percentage of the mentor salary or the journey person salary. There's also mentorship. With an apprenticeship program, you have to have that skilled mentor or that journey person that is training side by side with the apprentices and providing the on-the-job training to that individual or to those individuals. With the on-the-job training, it's typically at least 2,000 hours per year of paid on-the-job training. Next, there's the classroom instruction. This is typically a recommended minimum of 144 hours of instruction per year. There also has to be progressive wage increases. So as the apprentices go through their apprenticeship program, there should be at least one wage progression as they go through. Depending on the length of the program, you, as what we call the program sponsor, that's the entity or the organization that is actually administering the apprenticeship program, you would determine the number of wage increases and the percentages of those increases. Some of our longer programs, maybe at every 6 months intervals, they may give an increase. We have some programs that are 1 year in length, so they may have 1 or 2 or even up to 3 wage progressions. Again, that's up to the program sponsor. And then upon completion of the registered apprenticeship program, the apprentices will receive a nationally recognized credential. So this is basically like their college transcripts. They can go anywhere across the U.S., present their certificate of completion to those employers, and it would verify that they've gone through an industry recognized, vetted apprenticeship program and have the adequate skills to be able to perform in that industry. So myths, I'm going to kind of throw in some of the myths. So just so you know, a lot of times we go out to career fairs, job fairs, and the teachers or even parents think that apprenticeship, they don't want to come to our table because they think it's for those individuals that are underperformers. That is not the case at all. We have some very high-level apprenticeship programs. It really prepares workers for highly skilled careers. So it's for everybody. And it is not just for young people. We are, as a registered apprenticeship program, you can start individuals as young as 16 years of age. Typically, most of our programs right now start about 18 years of age. Most are currently in the building construction trades. So because of liability insurance purposes, they do start at 18, but we can start as young as 16. But registered apprenticeship is really suitable for career changers, even adults re-entering the workforce. We even have veterans who are coming out from the military and wanting to start a new career. So it's really for anybody. Another myth is that our registered apprenticeships are too expensive for employers. So many employers actually find that registered apprenticeships offer a positive return on investments, and there's other benefits, some we'll talk about in just a little bit, that really help employers. And really, if you're employing those those individuals as employees already, why not, take that extra step and really create that career pathway for them, provide them with the skills that they need to be good employees. As a registered apprentices are only for trades like construction. Again, that is not true. There are over 1,200 occupations across various industries currently. In New Mexico, within the last year and a half, we have actually ventured out into lots of different areas as well. We have some in IT, healthcare, we have an animal trainer. One of our most recent ones is a teacher apprenticeship. So there's all types of industries that you can register apprenticeships in. Another myth is that in order to have a registered apprenticeship program, it has to be union-based. Again, that is not true. There are many unions that offer registered apprenticeship training models. However, any employer, organization, entity can really offer. We have nonprofits even that can offer apprenticeship programs. We have a state agency now that has a registered apprenticeship programs. We have some apprenticeship programs with the national labs, with city municipalities. So it's really open. So registered apprenticeship has a proven track record of producing strong results for both employers and workers. So these are just some statistics from our Federal Department of Labor. So typically there's $1.47 return on investment for every dollar spent on an apprenticeship by employers. So that's where that big return on investment piece comes in. There's 93% of registered apprentices are employed upon completion of their apprenticeship. So typically when an apprentice starts an apprenticeship program, depending on the type of program you have, we have what we call individual programs and group programs. An individual program is, it's really a program that administers the program. So they're overseeing all of the instruction, the on-the-job training, and they're also employing the apprentice. The difference with the group program is that with a group program, those programs have, they're like our unions, our associations, our community colleges, and they administer the program. However, they rely on multiple agreements with multiple contractors or employers to provide the on-the-job training for those apprentices. So that's the difference. But so again, the intent with the apprenticeship is typically you're training for your own workforce. So that's why we have such a high retention rate of those apprentices staying with those employers once they complete their apprenticeship. 26,000 registered programs, that's approximately, so there's nearly 26,000 registered apprenticeship programs that are currently active across the nation. 3,143 new programs were established in FY 2020. So that was a 73% growth from 2009. A big part of that may be because of the federal investments in registered apprenticeship. Even at our own state level currently, we've had a lot of investments in registered apprenticeship within the last few years. Completers earn approximately, this is just an average, again, a national average of $77,000 per year once they complete their apprenticeship, and $300,000 is earned over the course. I guess that's over kind of their lifetime compared to those who don't complete an apprenticeship. So they're actually earning like $300,000 more than individuals who don't go through an apprenticeship program. So benefits. So for employers, there's lower costs of recruitment. The other thing, we do a lot of recruitment. Those programs that are registered, we have them on our website. We have an inquiry. We get over 1,200 inquiries, probably a quarter people looking into apprenticeship. So our website is very visible, and we have a lot of visitors to that. Apprenticeship creates a diverse and highly skilled workforce, creates career pathways, improved productivity and profitability, increased staff loyalty and worker retention, flexible training options. That's where we really work with you in creating a program that's going to work best for you. It minimizes liability cost, maximizes safety, and there's also possible access to state and federal resources and funding potentially. The benefits to the career seeker, these are all pretty simple and easy to see how the apprentice could benefit, but they're earning as they're learning. So they're getting their schooling, they're getting their employment, their job skills on the job, earning a paycheck without having to go into debt. So very limited debt. Some of our programs may charge for the cost of related instruction or the schooling piece of it. However, the majority of them do not. They gain workplace relevant skills in the field of their choice. For youth, it eases a transition from school to career. They receive that industry recognized and nationally portable credential. And possibly if some of our programs work with the colleges or community colleges to provide some of the instruction, those individuals would also be able to potentially obtain those college credit hours, and so long-term career and great earnings potential. So the keys to registering an apprenticeship program. Really, one of the things you want to look at is what are the needs of your company or organization. Select an occupation or the occupations for your program that you want to train in. You would then identify sponsors and partners. So you as an employer may decide you want to sponsor the program, or if there's an association or a group of employers that do that same type of work that you want to get together with, and one decides to sponsor that program. Again, like with our group programs, they're the ones that sponsor the program, but they have those multiple employers under their umbrella. So you would identify who the sponsor might be, any key partners. Are you going to partner with a community college? Do you have funding, or what other resources do you need? So those are some of the things you want to consider. Once you kind of have those things in place and you want to reach, your next step would be to reach out to us as the state apprenticeship agency. Just so you know, about, probably more than 50% of the states in the US now are overseen by a state apprenticeship agency. So apparently the governor of each state decides if they will have the Federal Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship, OA, that's the federal side is OA. They decide if they want their state to be a federal state or a state apprenticeship agency. So since the inception of apprenticeship in New Mexico, it's been administered by the state apprenticeship agency. In this case, in New Mexico, the state agency is the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. So you would really reach out to us. We will work with you. We kind of provide you an overview on registered apprenticeship. We meet with you, provide you an overview of what's going to be required in the administration, just to ensure you have a good understanding of what you will be responsible for as you administer your program. So once we've done that and you agree you want to move forward, then we come in full force to provide any technical assistance or guidance you may need. Part of what we look at next are the development of the core components of your program. So there are various regulatory and state and federal regulatory requirements. One of the things we'll look at is to ensure that it's an industry-led occupation and that it is an approved federal apprenticeable occupation. We'll ensure that there's going to be paid employment, a paid job, that the structured on-the-job learning and mentorship is there. The supplemental education, if you don't really have a committed partner yet, as far as an educational institution or any curriculum, that's kind of where we would be able to assist you. And really it's pretty flexible again as to the sponsor, what they want to use. Some of our programs, like our unions, have an international curriculum they use. Some use accredited ABC. Greta Schouman will be speaking to shortly. They use the NCCER curriculum. Some have their own curriculum that they've developed. So it really varies. The other thing will help you decide is how you're going to administer your instruction. Some of our programs administer it after hours in the evenings when the apprentices come in for a couple hours twice a week. Some do online classes, some do weekend classes, some do block scheduling for 1 week out of the quarter. They're in the classroom, the rest of the time they're out working. So again, that's really flexible as to what's going to work best for you as the employer or the program sponsor. We ensure the equal employment opportunity. So how you select apprentices and bring them into your program has to be fair and equitable. We look at the anti-harassment, all that fun stuff. So the other piece is that you do have to ensure quality and safety. So those are things that are included as part of your apprenticeship program. It's embedded in your work processes and your instructional piece as to how you're going to ensure quality and safety, CPR, OSHA, whatever it may be per your industry. And then the credentials, that's, some even within your own program, you may offer additional credentials other than just the certificate that we issue at the end of the program. And then after that is, once we go through the formal process, we'll assist you. We have a boilerplate template that we provide you that is basically your guide in developing those program standards. So the program standards is the document that outline how you will administer your program. We're here again to provide that technical assistance and guidance to you. We meet with you one-on-one, several times to go through, ask questions, get clarification, that kind of stuff. Once we feel you have a near final draft of the program standards, we'll also engage a couple of our state apprenticeship councils. So all of our state apprenticeship agencies across the U.S. have to have a state apprenticeship council. In New Mexico, we have a 9-member council that provides, they act kind of in an advisory or regulatory advisory capacity to some degree, and they provide a lot of input and they assist us in reviewing all of the program standards that are registered in the state. So we engage a couple of our council members, and then ultimately you would go before our full apprenticeship council during one of our quarterly apprenticeship councils for a recommendation of approval. Once they're approved, we work with you. We have our data system that we track all of the apprenticeship data. We enter your data into that system, and that's the system that you would then use to enter all your apprenticeship data and track that data. Once all of that is done, then you would launch and begin managing your program. And actually, I'm going to show my next slide. This is my contact or our contact information here for the state apprenticeship information. For our state apprenticeship office. And I'm going to stop sharing my slides so Greta can go into her portion of and Greta Schouman, she'll give you a little more insight, but she is with Associated Builders and Contractors, and they have a registered apprenticeship program with multiple occupations. I'll turn it over to you, Greta. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much, Katrina. And I'm so delighted that so many people are interested in apprenticeship and how to run an apprenticeship program. So I've got some notes here. What you're seeing here is I had actually done, most of it is going to be on record keeping because I did a presentation for that for our national organization on apprenticeship with the record keeping, but there's some things, to talk about here. So we start off with a quote from Albert Einstein, and he said, "Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters." And the way I apply this to apprenticeship is the devil is in the details. And that is so true. And And in bold, I have, because, this is what I live with. The important things we have to have are integrity, knowledge, accuracy, and care. We have to care. And that's really what I should say starts the whole process here. We have to care about what we're doing because we are doing this for other people. We are affecting their lives. So first of all, when you have an apprenticeship program, and I have worked with ABC for 19 years, the whole time has been an apprenticeship, and I love it. But what I will stipulate here is as you grow, as your program grows, as your company grows, as your association grows, you have to make sure you hire the right people. And I can give you a very good example personally of what's happened with us here at ABC. So when I first got appointed as a director of apprenticeship, and that's not how I started here, but when I first got appointed, then we had to have other.
Greta,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the slideshow isn't showing.
It's not showing. Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just
No, you're fine. Where the heck am I here? Oh, no wonder. Dear. Okay, back to Zoom. Share. 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 Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so let's go to this. I was just telling the ladies here that I hate PowerPoint because I start talking and nothing is ever right. So let's go back here. We have to have integrity, knowledge, accuracy, and care. Hiring the right people. So as I mentioned, when I became apprenticeship director, we had to hire somebody to take over the job that I had left in taking care of the assistant work there. Well, over the course of 10 years, we had 7 people in that position. And it doesn't mean that anybody was stupid or any of those things there. But apprenticeship, when you're running a program and when you're working with the program, it's very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. You have to have people who can look at a piece of information over here and see something else over here and realize how they're correlated. And just basic skills. Who knew that alphabetizing files was challenging? Who knew how to alphabetize was challenging? The other thing that you have is you have to have an ability with customer service and relating to people. You have to be able to be detail oriented, and it doesn't matter big picture person or not. You have to get with the details. You have to have an individual who really understands what your mission is. If you have an association, you have a mission. If you have a company, you have a mission. They have to understand what your mission and what your values are when you're trying to have apprenticeship as part of your training program. They also have to understand where this is going to go. And, over the course of time, you make a change in people's lives. Apprentices changes lives. They start off, they may not even really want to do this, but as they go along, they realize and they get involved in it and they say, this is making a difference. I don't know how many apprentices have come out of the program during the time and said, Greta, I just bought my first house. Greta, now I'm able to do this, or I'm able to do that. That's what having this kind of a career path does for individuals. They're not floating around in life anymore. But your staff has to be able to commit to gaining the knowledge that they need, being accurate, and then maintaining the integrity of the program. Integrity is essential, and the buck stops with us. It doesn't matter how many people, what other staff are involved. If you're the sponsor of the program, it's on you. So I take responsibility. Anything that happens is on me. And it's important to have a structured setup within your organization or within your company. I sit on the State Apprenticeship Council, and one of the things that is on the boilerplate is having an apprenticeship training committee or an apprenticeship advisory committee. Some organizations and some companies are like, well, we don't really need that. Yes, you do. You have to have people besides your administrative person to handle and also overview and double check. Apprenticeship programs are checks and balances, and to make sure that everything is running right, because things can fall between the cracks. In our case, as an association and as a nonprofit, we have a chapter board that oversees ABC chapter in general and the membership, but we have a trust board, and our trust board is specific to overseeing the entire apprenticeship program. And trust boards have a lot of responsibility because we have a fiduciary responsibility to what we're doing for the program, because apprenticeship is benefiting the apprentices. And we always have to make sure that that is happening, that everything we do is going to be to the overall benefit of the apprentice, because if it benefits them, it's going to benefit the company and it benefits the association there. The other thing is, because you have audits, we're audited by the state. So Katrina and her team comes by and checks everything. They have a whole checklist. The same thing, if you have anything to do with the Veterans Association or Veterans Administration, and you have apprentices who are veterans and getting their benefits, they audit you to make sure that it's operating correctly. NCCER, who happens to be our major curriculum sponsor, they audit every 3 years. And I know our files are good, but I sweat bullets every time I'm going to be going through this, just because I want to make sure everything is right and accurate. The other is we also have an audit from our financial auditors. So they come in and look through the entire program and look through the minutes. So, you know, if we bought a piece of equipment or we made a financial decision or something, it's accurately reflected in the minutes. So let's talk here about, you know, your apprenticeship program. And this may seem like a no-brainer, but read your standards of apprenticeship thoroughly. Read it from one end to the other. Don't skip over anything, because you're going to find all those details there. Make sure that the rest of the staff have read it too. Even those that are not involved directly with apprenticeship, maybe it's membership, maybe, you know, they're involved in events or something else. But if they're going to talk to, like, an association of ours with potential members about apprenticeship, and they give out the wrong information, you got a problem. So make sure they know what the apprenticeship is and what has to be done. Look over, as Katrina said, the agency requirements. Maintain your standards and maintain all of these records you have to the most stringent of the requirements. 5 years is what the state requires, that you have to keep all of your files on your apprenticeship program there. And then you can, you know, you can go ahead and shred them or destroy them, but we also keep a backup in electronic. So make sure you have the paper files and the electronic files. You want to make sure your employers, if you're an association, and your apprentices, no matter if you're a company or what, know about the requirements of the apprenticeship program. What we have is we send out to our individuals who are becoming apprentices, we have an orientation checklist. So it says, you know, it's all these things. I will, I must, I shall. And it talks, they're going to attend classes. They've read the standards. They're going to turn in their on-the-job training hours on time. You know, they're going to make sure that they pass all the tests. They recognize that, all these different things they have to do. So there's about 20 items on that checklist. And it goes together with the packet that gets sent to them. The apprenticeship standards, they have their apprenticeship agreement that comes from the state that they have to sign. They also have an apprenticeship handbook. They have to acknowledge that they've read and signed that. So all of these different things really are what is a check and balance, as I said again, to make sure you've notified your apprentices, you've notified your employers. So these policies, with all the applicable policies, what are you going to do if somebody leaves the program? You have to notify the state. You've got 45 days to notify the state of that. You have 45 days to notify the state that you're putting somebody into the program. So those are the things, the PWAS system. You're going to go into the state public works and apprenticeship program in there, and you're going to go ahead and enter your apprentices. That's a notification. If you have a database, make sure you have everything on your database there about your apprentice, the company they're working for, the date they started, and if you're going to be offering continuing education, true, that's not necessarily apprenticeship, but your apprentices are going to graduate and then they're going to go on and do some of these things, especially if they have to do it to maintain their license. So make sure you have those things as well. And then, of course, the curriculum. I have down here, review regularly and keep up with industry advances. Right now, this summer, we are going through our curriculum. We already had a meeting on our HVAC. Earlier, we had a meeting on our sheet metal program. We invited our member companies into this. We also invited our curriculum sponsors into this, and to see, where do we stand? Are we keeping up with what the industry is doing right now? For instance, sheet metal. A lot of it is fabrication, but much of it is installation. It's gone now from where, literally the sheet metal comes in the front door and it goes through a machine and comes out the back door, a finished duct. So things have changed, and we, as a program, we need to keep up with those changes and make sure, that we're talking in the same language. Some of the old curriculum refers to like faxes. We have a fax machine. I can't even remember what year we last used it, but things like that. So we need to make sure, and also the codes. If you have anything, if you have IAPMO, the sheet metal has a code, SMACNA, of course, the electrical, the NEC 70, all of those things. We need to make sure that we're keeping our apprentices current with what's happening there so that they can be doing everything legally. All right, now I'm going to go to the next slide here. Okay, this way. Okay. Again, records. Record keeping helps maintain our accreditation. It helps maintain your accreditation with the state of New Mexico and further on with the Department of Labor. The certifications. So we have certifications from NCCR from our curriculum, but we also have, of course, the certificate of completion from the state of New Mexico. So we always make sure we have copies of that we maintain electronically and in the physical files as well. It shows that we're trying to be compliant. If you've got things in order, nothing is going to run perfectly. There's going to be mistakes and whatever happens, but it's not intentional. There's a difference between making a mistake and being totally incompetent. And believe me, we've seen that. So, you're doing things in good faith, but again, the detail. What are some of the other things we need to keep when you're doing this? Is the historical perspective. This is really big. You don't know how many times the full circle comes around and everybody's like, oh, we need to research this. And it was the same companies and the same information that I researched and have files on from 10 years ago. It happens, but you want to keep that for your research. It helps with your budget. So you can do a comparison of, you know, what were you doing then? What are you doing now? What were you spending then? What are you spending now? The planning of your program and growing, and again, new program development. We have 6 programs. We started off, you know, years ago with 4. And then we had 6, and then we had to sunset 2, and now we have 6 again. So again, that has to do a lot with what are your needs? What are your needs as a company? What are your needs as an association? What are your members looking for? And if you do not, if you're like, we have multiple programs going on. If we are lacking, if you do not have an apprentice in a program for a year, you have to sunset that program. We've had to do it, you know, a couple of times because again, it wasn't being supported. It just wasn't a good idea. It lasted for a while. It wasn't a good idea. So keep track of that as well. In the individual apprentice files, everything should be exactly the same. Your application, your IDs, your OJT slips, advancement letters, disciplinary actions, your certificate of completion. Keep everything in the exact same order all the time. It just makes it so much easier. And again, competency, and being competent with that. And even if you're a company with one program, you're going to need all the same things. It doesn't matter if you have one apprentice or if you have hundreds of apprentices. Keep track of your attendance and your sign-in sheets. The state is going to look at that with the comparison. Your OJTs, budgets that you have for your programs, again, the policies and procedures, and your instructors. You know, what you're paying them. Do they have a contract with you? Make sure that you have all of these things here. We have 2 separate files, one for an instructor that's an employee, which they all are, and then one that is simply an instructor file. So one's personnel, one's an instructor file. Articulation agreements, memorandums of understanding. So if you have anything going on with high schools or colleges, other educational entities, make sure you have those documents on file as well. Committee minutes. We have to keep all of those. I have committee minutes going back all the way to 2003. Certificates, cards, your OSHA 10, again, identification, written permission to share information about the student. So all these different things become sensitive areas in there. When we had an articulation agreement with the school, we had to make sure that that was signed because they were students of the school there. Keep copies of everything, whether it's electronic or written. You never know when you're going to need, you know, things like this. So, you know, I could say from a personal perspective, this is one of the most fulfilling things I have ever done. Because you're seeing the effect on it of people. And we've had hundreds of apprentices come through our program and they go on, they have a successful career, they continue on, they come back here as instructors, and you know, they just pay it forward there. So what we do is pivotal, and you know, doing it to the best of our ability, but keeping all of these records and making sure it will make your life easier. Write down the procedures. Make sure that others know what those procedures are. Always remember, think of if you get hit by a bus one day, who's going to be able to take over, or if we get sick or something, what is going to happen? So make sure that you have continuity in that, and you also have a succession plan within your organization or your company for this. Because as I said, what we do is not for everybody. And you're going to discover that as you go through it. So in this way, you know, hire the right people, make sure everybody has the right attitude. The devil is in the details, and it's all about the people that we serve. So my contact information is there. As another note, I wanted to mention about funding. So there's the Apprenticeship Assistance Act, which you can ask Katrina about. And there's also PWAT for those programs that are in the construction industry. And those are two funding streams that can help assist you in being able to take care of your program and offset some of the costs there. So thank you for your attention. And I guess now we will go to questions with Stacy.
Thank you so much, Greta. And you are welcome to stop sharing if you'd like, and then we will open for questions. So the first question that we did receive was, can someone we already hired within the last 30 days be added into an apprenticeship program?
Go ahead, Katrina.
Sure. So if you already have an established program and you had this individual, yes, you could. If you find that that individual does need, additional training and you want to put them in the program, you can. We've also had programs who are in the process of registering a program, and they may bring a new individual on. And then once their program is formally registered, they can go ahead and register that individual into the program and provide them previous credit for their on-the-job training and the instruction they've provided, possibly prior to them becoming a registered program. So yes, that is possible.
Thank you. And just a quick reminder, if you do have a question, please go ahead and add it into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. The next question is there a standard time frame of how long a registered apprenticeship program should be?
Really, what we utilize to determine the length of an apprenticeship program is through our federal guidance. The feds have put out what we call an apprenticeable occupation list. So this occupation or this list entails all of the 1,200 plus occupations that are considered apprenticeable. And also based on industry standards, it outlines how long the training should be. For an example, an electrician is typically an 8,000-hour program, so a 4-year program. So when we look at registering programs, we do look at that list that's our guideline to tell us approximately how long the apprenticeship program should be. We will not register a program that is less than a year in length. And again, for example, the electrical, if somebody wants to register an electrical program for a 1 year, that we will not do that. We do follow the industry standard. We do have some leeway where we can let them increase the hours by 25% or possibly reduce it by 25%. But usually it's right around what the feds have established as the quality standard for training in those occupations. So that's usually what we look at.
Thank you. The next question is, how often are audits?
Audits, usually the first audit. So when you first register an apprenticeship program, you're basically on a provisional status. So after 1 year being a registered program, we'll come out and kind of look at your related instruction, your on-the-job training records, ask a lot of questions, look at the program operation. And at that point, we'll determine, if you're doing well, we can remove that provisional status. And if not, that's where we step in. I mean, our goal is to help you to be successful in administration of your program. So really, if there were some deficiencies, that's where we would come in and provide that technical assistance to you, that guidance to you. But so after year one, we would do our first review, and then at least once every 5 years after that.
What's the cost for an employer determined?
What was that?
Or how is the cost for the employer determined?
If you're referring to say an association, we do have a tuition rate, which is determined, it's a flat fee, and it's determined for every semester per apprentice. However, what we recommend for our members to do is also we connect them with the WIOA, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which also can assist with funding or reimbursement for training. And this really is any kind of training. It's not just apprenticeship. It can be for any kind of upskill training. So if they're learning Excel, or if you have, different kinds of things going on there, they can avail themselves of that. So we connect our members with the gosh, what is it now? America Jobs First. Is that what it is?
America's
Job Center.
Okay. Anyhow, it used to be Workforce Connections. Now it's whatever it is. And we have our contacts there, so we just put them together for that. And then of course, for us, when they go ahead and use and send us the cents per hour contributions, they have to do this with the permission of the state, etc. But when they send it to us, we actually go and we reduce their tuition bill by what they're sending in there for cents per hour contributions. So it really, it helps our members in, being able to, with the costs that are associated with training.
Thank you. Next question is, I work in the newspaper multimedia industry. Is an apprenticeship good fit for my industry? And coupled with that, Katrina, can any industry or company start a registered apprenticeship program?
So yeah, that's something we could definitely look into. I would think so. Usually when somebody comes to us and we're not sure, we will fall back to our apprenticeable occupation code or our list. We'll also look at ONET to kind of look at the occupation, see how they match. And that's something we could definitely work with you on to determine if it is an apprenticeable occupation. And kind of we would look at too, what are the skills you're needing, to get your individuals trained on. Is there instruction in that, or what type of curriculum would need to be developed? But in all likelihood, there's something that would align with that would be apprenticeable.
The next question is there a minimum or maximum number of participants we can have in our program?
There is not. I mean, typically you should have at least one. There's a time frame that we will allow a program, like when one apprentice completes, and then they, it may take them a little while to get another one on board. But we do have programs with just one apprentice, and we have probably Greta's is our largest right now, over 400 apprentices. So it can really vary. So, yeah.
Are there any common questions that you receive, Katrina, from employers that you'd like to also address here?
One of the ones that we do tend to get, and sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier, is if what is the cost to register an apprenticeship program? So just so you are aware, there is not a cost to register an apprenticeship program. The assistance we provide, our work on our end, that's all part of our job, and we do that at no fee. Really, the cost that gets incurred to the program sponsor, the employer, obviously the wages of the apprentices, possibly curriculum, if you hire instructors, those types of things. And again, we do not have a lot of funding at the state level, but we do have a couple of funding streams that we could potentially assist with. But usually when the employers or sponsors come to us, it's because they're having challenges in meeting their workforce needs. Hence, they want to try the apprenticeship training model to see how it can benefit them, and they're willing to make that investment into training their workforce. So, sorry, I lost track of the question. I think, you were asking. So that is one of the questions we get. And again, there is no fee associated with it. How long does it take to register the program or to go through the registration process is another common question we get. And that really varies. We do have our quarterly council meetings that are held February, May, August, and November of every year. And typically we will send those program standards once we work with you in developing them. We have to have those out to our program sponsors at least 30 days prior to the council meeting. So some programs come to us, or potential programs come to us with curriculum in place, with employer members lined up, or they're ready to go. So it's just a matter of executing the program standards. Some come to us with no knowledge whatsoever, and it's a learning curve, and we work with them in providing those, getting those partnerships established. So we've had programs take up to maybe a year and a half to get through the formal registration process, and some maybe within a couple months are ready to go. So it just really varies on where that potential sponsor is at and what type of support or assistance they may need prior to implementing the program. Those are a couple, Stacy.
Another one.
Sorry.
Sorry, it just says, do you have any recommendations for employers starting an apprenticeship program? And that's for both of you.
Okay, I would say, number one, look at the long view, because sometimes companies look at, I need an apprentice for this job, and the job is going to last maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe less, and they need to meet certain requirements from whatever it is. And then what do? Most apprenticeship programs, we're here to train the apprentice into a career. So you want to look at the long view, and you're training that person, and look at the view of your company. You're going in and you're building your workforce within the company. And that's what you want to be looking at. The short-term view is, I need somebody to do this job, and then, then what? So I could say, as an association, if a company happens to do that and they lay the person off, the apprentice is still our responsibility. And then we've got to get them connected with another sponsoring company to take care of the on-the-job training component there. So, look at what you're wanting to accomplish. If it's just a job, well, I wouldn't even recommend that. But again, the long term, you're building your company, you're building your workforce, you're helping the community, you're adding to all these things. All of that will bring back the return on investment to the company.
I guess what I would add is that, maybe just kind of do your homework, do some research about apprenticeship, learn a little bit more about it to see if you feel it's a good training model. It's a well-known model, and so many employers embrace the apprenticeship model. And I would just say, find out more about apprenticeship and determine if it is, a model that would work for you or your company. Also, it's good to maybe even reach out to some of our registered apprenticeship programs. I know I often get calls and they ask for contact information of some of our programs so they can talk to them directly about the administration process and what are some of the pros and cons, or how do they address some of these things. So utilizing our existing programs too as a resource is very beneficial. Even going to see a lot of our programs have state-of-the-art facilities. ABC, for example, if you go to theirs, they have electrical lines, they have an area for the apprentices to dig, to trench, the med vac or med gas setups. They have all of the hands-on lab stuff. It's amazing what these programs have, and really the training that they provide to the apprentices. So that's kind of what I would recommend.
Thank you. When an employee applies for an apprenticeship program, do we start the apprenticeship pay at the time of hire?
Yes. When an employee applies for an apprenticeship program, could we start the apprenticeship pay at the time of hire? I'm not sure I understand, but the apprentice would, so within the program standards that the employer develops, they have to note what the average salary is for the skilled mentor journey person in that job. So say for an electrician, it's $35 an hour. And if their wage progression for those apprentices within their standards, say they start an apprentice at 50%, So, and then it jumps the next 6 months, it jumps to 60% and so on and so on. But they have to start that an apprentice at the minimum of that, at least that 50%. So that apprentice would start at $17.50 per hour. If they want to start an apprentice higher than that, maybe somebody comes in and they have some schooling or some prior work experience, they can start the apprentice higher than that 50%, but it cannot be less than what that 50 or that percentage is noted within the program standards based on the journeyman wage that they know or the mentor wage in their standards.
I would also add that like employers come to us and say, I have this, the same question. An employee is not an apprentice until they are registered with the state and they have that agreement. It can be dated for the date of hire if it's within like the 45 days, but they're not an apprentice until that happens. And if you start paying them apprentice wages, which might be lower than what they had or something, especially if it's on public works jobs and they're not registered as an apprentice and it isn't on any kind of documentation, the employer can get into a lot of problems then, because you've got to make sure you've got that documentation there and that they're on the work site as an apprentice working under a journeyman. Otherwise, there have been situations where the company has to go back and pay that employee, perhaps as a journeyman, if they're touching tools of the trades, but they weren't an apprentice at the time. So again, documentation and making sure you've got all those bases covered.
Thank you. I think this is going to be our last question, and then I'll let you both have your closing remarks. But the last question is, how are units completed assessed? Is an outside entity required, or can the employers verify their own trainees' accomplishments?
What?
So how are the units completed? How do you assess that? And do they need an outside person to verify the completion of each unit, or can they do that themselves?
Are you referring to curriculum?
Yes, I think the curriculum or each phase of their apprenticeship.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're in an apprenticeship program, first of all, we have our attendance sheets, we have our OJT sheets, all of that documentation is being put into our database. And then we have a report. So, and first of all, I'm physically here. So, you're going through and you can see who's here, who's not here. But that's what we're relying on there. And when we do that, then we run a report and it's like, okay, this apprentice has done, this is how it works here for us. They have 1 to 72 hours of classroom time and 1 to 1,000 LJT hours. They're in training period 1. When they move consecutively and go to the start of the next semester and start 73 hours and then 1,001 hours of OJT within that period, they're starting period 2 and they get advanced. But we run reports based on all that information, which also we record if they're absent. So an apprentice can be on this teeter-totter. Maybe they've got all their classroom hours in, maybe they're starting second year and they've got their classroom hours in and they look good, but they haven't been turning in their OJTs. So they're still getting paid as a first period apprentice because they haven't done it consecutively to move together there. So that's when we get the figurative cattle prods out to try to move things forward, because everybody talks like a little sewing circle and it's like, well, so-and-so got a raise and I didn't get a raise. Well, let's look at the records and see what happens. And then, you get a move on there.
And so really, I was just going to add to that. So with the related instruction, whatever, if you're using a, like Greta's using NCCER, some of our lineman programs use the Merchants Job Training Program or the Northwestern College program. So they have modules, and so they kind of can monitor and see where the apprentices are, how they're scoring. But then typically the instructors will actually work with them to kind of monitor. As far as the on-the-job training piece, it is up to the employers or the sponsors to be able to verify that, you know, they are competent and they have mastered those skill sets and able to perform, you know, the work requirements before progressing. But they do not have to bring in an outside entity per se to evaluate them. That's usually done in-house by the contractors, employers, evaluating and working with the apprentices hands-on doing that work.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for your presentations to both of you. I appreciate it. And again, this recording will be sent to everyone that attended and then also available on the NMDWS YouTube channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.